Hello and welcome to the Long Ways podcast. I'm Devin Windlespect.
I'm Mike Windlespect.
Hey, and Eric's joining today.
Yay!
Love to see it. We are a hiking trio out to hike the great long trails of the world. This is an episode where we're actually coming to you after returning from our latest trail. We hiked the Lycian Way in Turkey this year. So for the first time, getting outside of the geographic boundaries of Europe and heading into Asia and the Middle East for our last trail. It was a tough one, this last one. I think it's the first thing to start off with. Like Slovenia before that, we've been biting at some harder trails lately. They've been really rewarding, but they've just been, I felt pretty worn out by this one, guys. But I want to just, I want to start off by saying, like, why did we pick Turkey on this trail? So, Mike, Eric, what were your first experiences in the country, and why did we decide to pick this trail of all trails?
Well, unless I'm wrong, we picked this one because it was going to be a beach hike.
Yeah, for sure.
There were beaches, yes. They were just stuck in very deep valleys, it seems.
They were beautiful beaches, though. The beaches did not disappoint.
They were nothing on this trip was disappointing at all. So I'm going to say that we picked this one because we were looking for something a little bit more challenging. We didn't have a lot of time again, okay, which was, so we had to keep these down to 6 and 7 days. And we've heard a lot of great things about this. And also, for me, it was the historical basis of it.
Yeah.
We're going to be right there with the Romans and the Greeks and, all that history in that area. So
I don't recall this being a vote. And one of the outcomes of this hike is that we will now have a 2/3 vote.
This is true.
For the next election.
I think how it usually goes is me going, oh, this seems really cool, thumbs up or thumbs down, and then we just book it. So, I mean, why I chose it was I wanted to get, stretch our comfort zone a little bit. We've been hiking through Europe and every single one of our trails, and I wanted to go to Turkey. I also just wanted to go to Turkey because I'd never been before. And then we found this trail, which was, I think it was voted one of the best long distance trails in the world by a couple of places. And we didn't hike the whole thing. We hiked about 7 days of it, but it's this long trail that kind of winds its way along the coast of Turkey down by the city called Antalya, down in the south of the country, right by the Aegean Sea. And then it's dotted with the ruins of all of these ancient, like Greek and like Proto-Greek city-states there. There's like Byzantine ruins from the Romans there. And this is what I was really looking forward to. So I think the first thing to start with is, let's just talk about top highlights from the trail, top takeaways from the trail. And I'm gonna flag Eric in for that. Just like top line takeaways from it.
I mean, I think you hit them all in your introduction there. The ruins were magnificent. I couldn't believe the access that we had to them, like being able to literally walk and touch and feel the great, monuments and constructed theaters and just the things that were still available to us, our culture to explore was magnificent, beyond my expectations. The views on the trail were stunning. The water and the blues and the greens and just the history you could feel in these old pirate beaches was so encapsulating and romantic, and it just spiked every one of my creative tendencies to want to create art and take pictures. And I have so many to go through yet. But the third thing I think would be the culture of the people. I had no expectations of what Turkey would be like. I had sort of anticipated maybe, what the cuisine would be like, but I was pleasantly surprised by how welcoming everyone was, and the access to new and different foods that I had never experienced before, and obviously couldn't read any of the writing, so I didn't really know what I was eating, but I was excited to enjoy and try new things. So that would be my top 3.
Yeah.
What about you, Dad?
Very similar. I mean, I was in Turkey a long time ago, but very, very briefly in the military. And then you know, basically wanted to go back. I think, my three highlights were really, this was a very different trail for us. They all seem to have their own flavor of what they're going to be. And this one was a little bit different. But, my big takeaway was, I made up my mind after the Hadrian's Wall path that, I step on the trail, I step off the trail, unless if there's some sort of major issue of some sort. But I did that, and I think that was my takeaway. That we completed it. We didn't have a down day in the middle, which was interesting. We put that at the beginning to explore Antalya. Super glad we did that. What an amazing city, and I got to go see more of Hadrian's. I've seen Hadrian's now in England and now in Turkey, which is kind of interesting. And I think that was takeaway number one. And number two is definitely the hospitality. I mean, the people there were fantastic. It's definitely a culture which welcomes visitors and hikers and people. And, we stayed in everything from small bed and breakfasts to very nice hotels. And I really enjoyed that. And the third was really the history of the area. Like Eric was saying, being able to walk through Olympus, and hiking Mount Chimera, this is history. This is as close as you can get to history. If you want to stick your head into the natural gas fires of Chimera, you can do that there. You can do whatever you want. So I think that was a big thing as well. The trail was a challenge. I'm sure we'll get to that, but it was a good challenge as I look back at it. It was a very good challenge.
So, we'll get to the challenges of the trail soon, but I think one of the things I wanted to ask you guys was, what was your favorite day on the trail? So we did I think it was about 7 days of hiking straight. This one was a little different because we did one long day followed by one short day throughout the course of the hike. So we do one big 13-mile day, and then we follow it up with like a 5-mile day or a 6-mile day. That was kind of like staying in the same town and maybe going out and seeing a cool like lighthouse, or going to see Chimera, which we just talked about, the old mountain that has like natural gas fires burning from it that they thought the ancient Greeks thought the Chimera beast used to live in. And so I was wondering, of those 7 days, which was for you guys, the best on the trail? And I'm going to actually ask Dad first, and then we can circle back to me.
Believe it or not, I think, one of the best days for me was the hike up to Chimera and down. That was a short day, and all the days had their own highlights and everything. But I think that was one of my favorite days because you are, like I just said, walking through history. Chimera is where the ancient Greeks, before this whole thing has moved to Athens, the ancient Greeks used to light the Olympic torches, the early Olympic torches, and then run them down to Olympus, right? Which is this town we got a chance to walk through on a different day. But I think that the ability to walk up there and see that and come back down was pretty amazing for me. But we had rough days on the trail, but I think that the views were just amazing on almost every single day.
Yeah, Eric, what about you? What was your favorite day on the trail?
Gosh, it's so hard to pick a favorite day. When I think back to the challenges, I'm a little blinded by saying which day was my favorite, because usually the harder days had the most stunning views. So that's hard for me to pinpoint one day. But I think that the morning that we got to walk through Olympus, that was the start of one of the harder days. But I think that morning walk along the beach and coming through the ruins sort of right after daybreak was so awe-inspiring. I think that was the day I felt the most connected to that ancient culture. Being able to experience Olympus first thing in the morning was just breathtaking to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Eric. I think it was day 3 for us. So we had done one long day to start. Then we had a short day up to Chimera. And then we had this third day where this was one of the harder days on the trail, although every day seemed hard. We had to hike up this mountain called Mount Moses. And before that, you got to just walk through the ruins of Olympos, which was, a Lycian state, and the Lycians, being this proto-Greek state. They were kind of connected to the Hittites a bit, but had a lot of Greek culture. And then it became a Greek state. And there's a brief period where it was like a pirate haven, like kind of like a pirate republic, which is kind of cool. And then it becomes Roman and then Byzantine. And then it kind of falls into ruins. But you're kind of walking through, as Eric was saying, the ruins of just this city that has lasted for 5,000 years or so throughout its history. And it was really cool because like it was kind of tucked into like this really protected valley right by the river. So you kind of like saw why they built it here. But I remember that day also, like hiking Mount Moses was probably the toughest, technically, physically challenging part of the hike right after that. It was
To that point.
to that point. Well, yeah. I mean, it was a high ascent. It was really steep the entire time. And the downhill was also tough after that. But I remember there was amazing views on the top of that too. So I would say that was my favorite day. They all kind of are really good. The day after was kind of a low key day. I hiked out to this old lighthouse outside of the town we were at. That was a really pretty day. But I think that was one of my favorites. But, switching to the challenges, Eric, top challenges of this trail.
Oh gosh, I think I underestimated the heat that we would be experiencing. We did this one late purposely because we wanted it to be cooler, and I think that they actually asked people not to do this trail through July and August because of the extreme heat. So the heat was intense, and it resulted in us, I think, underestimating the amount of water that we needed to have on us, which is a lesson that we should have learned multiple times, and we've talked about before, is always be prepared with more water. So that was the heat and the water was the number one challenge. The terrain was more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Even the first day we did some mountaineering, I would say that was not as easy technically as I would thought it was going to be, scrambling up rocks, etc. That happened a couple times on the trail going up the ascents that I wasn't expecting that. And the third thing was never underestimate those downhills. The downhill you were just talking about when Moses, that was the hardest thing for me. My legs were screaming that next day because that first half of the day we went straight up, but that means the second half of the day you were going straight down. And my legs and knees and ankles in particular were not trained and prepared for that. I was really sore that next day. Did not do that lighthouse hike that you talked about because I needed a day of rest.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things we've really discovered on these trails is just the importance of if your body says to rest, to rest.
Exactly.
Like if you push yourself too hard, you're going to hurt yourself and then you won't be able to do the rest of the trail. So, I had one day where I said, I still feel good. This is a short day. It's just a 5-mile day. I'm going to go out in the morning, hike to this lighthouse, hike back, and then we're going to get lunch with Eric and Michael. And it was perfect, and everyone else got to rest and we had another long, hard day afterwards. Yeah. I mean, Dad, what about you for challenges?
I think that once again, I'm going to echo a little bit of Eric's. I think one of the challenges was really the heat and water. I mean, I remember one day we actually went on the trail with almost 17 liters of water and ran out. This was a very hot time. It wasn't supposed to be. The week before it was actually pretty cool there. And we hit a very, very, it was, mid 90s, very arid. No, it's not like you can get water from the stream and purify it. I mean, we are experienced now. Okay. We are not always good at doing things, but we are experienced now. And we really, we did try the water thing. It was a challenge. The heat was a challenge. The ascents were, especially for me, being a little bit older, right? I had to really pace myself. And like Devin said, you got to listen, just say, I need to stop here, right? There's no reason, to create a problem by pushing yourself. And I think we did a great job of that. And some of the logistics, we work with a great company, Max Adventures. And I got to tell you, this was what I thought was going to be a challenge, ended up not being one. On our last long day of hiking, which was really, I believe, the hardest day. Okay, it was up and down, then these long hikes back to a pirate cove. And when we got to the pirate cove, we were supposed to meet this car. And all day I was just, the challenge was going to be how we're going to do this if we don't have it, the anxiety of it, and things like that. And it was so funny because you're literally standing out in the middle of the woods and, And there's supposed to be a car picking you up at 4:30, and no kidding, at 4:15 that car pulled up. And so there was that. That type of challenging. Getting to Turkey was a logistical game for us, not being able to speak the language at all, and not even being able to try to do that. That was a little bit of a challenge. But I would say the heat, the trail being definitely more technical than I thought it was going to be, and then the water was really my big three.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to echo all that. I think multiple days I was coming onto the trail with, usually I go hit a trail with about 3 liters of water. If it's about a 10-mile day, maybe another liter more besides that. And I was going through 5 liters a day, easy. I just could not keep water in the entire trail. It was just so hot and we were just sweating so much. So, I mean, if anyone ever wants to do the trail, we did it in September, which is, technically fall, but it felt like high summer. And actually, if we did this again, I would actually recommend people to do it in October, maybe at the earliest.
Yeah.
The other challenge I think for me was that it was a really well marked trail. I don't think we ever had problems with getting lost so badly. And also the Max Adventure app, which we use, really helped with that. But it was a much more rugged trail than I think we were expecting. Eric and I came off of Slovenia, and we decided that was a bit too rugged for us. And so one of the things when I was looking at other trails was to do something that was a little challenging, but not Slovenia level. And I honestly, I think Eric was agreeing with me on this when we were talking on the trail. This was up there with Slovenia as the toughest trail I've done, just because it was so rugged. It was so hot. And it definitely felt like the end of every day felt like you had just gone through a massive challenge. Not to scare anyone from doing the trail, I also want to just put out that this was probably, it's always hard to say what the most beautiful trail is, but this one was up there, guys, with just how pretty it was.
It was amazing. It really was. And the good news about it being so beautiful is the fact that our photographer friend would always want to stop and take pictures. And this was one time welcome ever. We'd even ask him, would you like to take a picture here, Eric?
But it was that kind of it just, I know it's Turkey, but you're walking through Greek cities and stuff, and it just felt like you were in ancient Greece, which, for the Greeks way back in the day, this was part of Greece, that it was very much like the Aegean Sea was the lake in between all the city states. And we were only 100 miles south of Troy and that kind of stuff too. So yeah, I think we can't do this podcast without talking about Diamond. Eric, you want to tell us a little bit about Diamond?
Well, one thing to know about the culture is the animals are treated as well as people are. I think what the saying was they're not anyone's dogs, they're everyone's dogs and cats. And that was obviously apparent everywhere we went. The animals were really well taken care of. But in the regards of, their population, they're not spayed and neutered. So there are a lot of dogs and cats around. And on the day we were talking about, we met several dogs that were escorting us along the beach. It seems like they would work in shifts. This is my block. I'll walk you to the next block and so forth. But one dog in particular is a black dog. And we refer to him as Diamond because he's had sort of this white diamond shape on his head. Just a beautiful, beautiful animal. And he ended up following us through town and sort of escorted us out of town and kept going. And we actually stopped a couple of times to try to, get him to go back to town because it was getting further and further away, and we were not comfortable that he was going to be able to find his way back. But this animal just continued to follow us, and me being a soft-hearted person, I don't know if this is the right or wrong thing to do, but at one of our breaks, I gave this poor thing some water because it was in desperate need of water. But then I think that solidified his decision to continue to follow us. But I couldn't just let him suffer. But he ended up following us through the entire trail. Through lunch, and I'll let you take over from there because he palled up to you at that point.
Yeah, I mean, he was just the best dog. I was just thinking, if this dog had, if I had lived in Turkey, I would have taken this dog home. There's no question about it. He was, kind of he'd run up ahead, and then you think you lost him, and then he'd come back, and then we had lunch, and he sat down beside us. He always wanted some water, a little bit of cheese, but he wasn't begging or anything like that. He just sat right down beside your feet. And he was just the best dog, guys. I really wish we'd been able to bring him home. He decided to head back with another group. I think he managed to find his way back to to the town afterwards. But yeah, I missed him. He was a good
He
boy.
didn't know the trail very well. He knew the trail better than we did.
Yes, I don't know if we were the first hikers he's brought up or not.
I don't think so either. I think it's a there and back thing for me. He escorts them up there, and then they goes back to another group or something. Probably an afternoon trip, maybe.
But yeah, no, he was definitely our mascot for the entire trail. So just the best boy. I have some good photos of him just like sitting there with us together, just like watching over like the mountains and stuff and the sea, and he just hanging out right by your feet, not begging, but like not scared. Just he was the best. So I wanted to plug Diamond a little bit just because I feel like he was very much the heart and soul of that trail. He was the dog who just wanted to bring you up to the top of the mountains, and he knew the way, and he was our little guide for a day of the trail. So
it was a good day for that too, because I think we all kind of needed it. That last full day was a 11 or 12 mile trail, which is well within our ability to do. But the heat, and this one was more up and down. We had to make an ascent to go above the lighthouse and then come back down to it, the views and everything. But I think the first part up, sometimes these ascents aren't always, I don't know, they're not easy, and okay, there's not a lot to do. I think having Diamond there running around, he would just we think he was gone, then he'd pop up 200 yards ahead of us on the trail.
Exactly.
Is there an easier way to get there? Can you show us? But I think it was it was a nice attention break for us too.
Well, I'm watching our time a little bit, and I know we try to keep these around 30 minutes or so. So I got two big questions for you guys about the Lycian Way. The first one it's a question I always like to ask you guys before, as people are listening to our podcast and they're thinking about, I'd be interested in this trail. One reason you should hike the Lycian Way, and one reason that you should maybe reconsider, I think is the way to think about it.
I'll start off with my first should. Okay.
Okay.
I think that the views of the Mediterranean and the experience of the Turkish towns we were in makes it worth it. It would definitely, the views and the people. If we needed something, we could just ask, and they found a way to overcome the language barrier perfectly every single time. Hospitality was outstanding. Food was outstanding. People were outstanding. The cats and dogs were outstanding.
So many cats.
But it was great. I mean, if you're a cat lover, these cats are so well taken care of, like Eric said. Just they're feral, but they're not wild. They're very, very, very good. But I think that would be it. That you should do it. It is a trail that if you're going to do these types of hikes, I'm glad we did it. So I'll start with my should. Let's all do shoulds, I guess.
I want to do a quick should. Mostly because we haven't talked about it a lot. I would say food-wise, this was one of our best trails. You're getting fresh fish at every stop. Turkish food is just delicious. And so you kind of ended the day with really good meats. We had some fun places we stayed at. I remember, I'm forgetting the town's name, but the town outside of Olympos, we had this favorite restaurant right by the beach. You just saw the sun setting over Mount Moses right behind you. And we had another one where we stayed at it's kind of a weird thing they did where they built all these floating platforms above that canal. So all the restaurants were on this canal, and we ate there, which that restaurant I think is more for the experience than the service. But hey, it is what it is. But the food was just incredible the entire time. And for me, I like kind of combining, culture, foodie stuff with the hikes. So that was a big highlight for me.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I think if you're looking for an immersive experience, this is the one for you, because there's no way you can get around the culture, the history. It's everywhere you look. It's built into everyone's day to day. It is the most immersive experience that we have had when you think about food, culture, trail, history. It's everything. It's everything you would want.
I mean, just pulling off that, if you are a history person, if you're interested in ancient Greece, if you're interested in ancient Rome, you can't sleep on this trail. I mean, I just remember this one moment where we were up by Chimera, and there's an old ruined church that was built. It's an old Byzantine church built on the ruins of an old Greek temple. And I walked in, and they're in this one alcove, still protected from the sun. There was still a mural that had probably been painted in 1200 AD or something like that. And those are the kind of experience you get on this. And, walking through Olympos was another one. Walking around, this old pirate cove, which was at the end of one of our hikes. And I walked down to it, and there's still like the ruins of an old Greek city that used to be there. And there's just people like sitting there, like having a barbecue and everything, like in the ruins of the city. So for history people, I think all of Turkey, I went up to Istanbul afterwards, and there's a lot of this, but just second to none. And I think that real quick to shout out that you've now followed Hadrian from one end of Europe to the other.
I have. And so the history of that is pretty amazing. I'll probably be trying to put a story up on our site about just that, chasing Hadrian too.
Yeah. We found like Hadrian's Gate and like Hadrian's temples and that kind of stuff too. So I think now kind of going to a reason why you should hold on the trail. I think this is another one like Slovenia. I think if this is your first hike, this is too tough, personally. I think that the combination of the heat and the ruggedness, we're 3 experienced hikers, and it knocked our socks off. So I would say to hold on it if this is your first trail, if it is a trail where honestly that you're still kind of getting into physical fitness a bit, because I felt like that was really needed on some of the ascents. And maybe if I think just to put this out here, I've been to the Middle East a lot. So, Middle Eastern culture isn't so different for me, but if it could be really different for some people, like you have the call to prayer going out every day, which is really beautiful, but it could be, it's different from being like in Western France, and the language is really, really, really tough. I mean, I usually try to adopt a few words of the language, and I just could not in Turkey. It's a really tough language. So just kind of know that maybe the culture shock angle of it might actually be a little bit more than you would get in like France or Spain or Portugal. Those are the reasons I would hold on it. I think it's a trail I would really recommend, but I would not recommend it for a first time hiker for these.
I think that my reason why you should avoid it is if you don't have somebody helping out with the logistics. Okay. Yeah. And we are very fortunate. This is my seventh hike with Max Adventures, and not just a shameless plug of them. They are amazing at setting these things up, and they work with local travel companies. And I'm not kidding you. This one had a lot of, you're going to have to meet a boat here, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to have to meet a car here, right? Or there's an hour-long transportation. So the idea that you could take that part of it away from you and just experience a trail. If you're trying to worry about how are we going to do this or how are we going to do that, the logistics, you're going to miss those beautiful views, and and that's really what's worth it. And you're not going to be able to focus on the history or the culture or anything, because you should avoid this trail if you don't have somebody who's helping with your logistics on it. And also, like Devin, like you said, okay, this was challenging. Okay. And, I'm 60. It was a challenge, a big challenge. And I think preparing yourself for it in advance, I start now over 4 months in advance, usually getting ready and, making sure the hiking. Even then I felt physically well prepared for this trail. Okay. But the real issue was the fact that, I wasn't ready for it, how much it was going to be still. What the challenge of some of those ascents was going to be, and the descents.
Yeah, I think my sentiments echo the things that you both said. I think this is the most out of my comfort zone that I've been, and if you're really afraid of that, this is not for you. And I would also say that I wouldn't try to do this one by yourself. Definitely, you're gonna need someone else with you, not only to help navigate the trails, but the day-to-day life. Interpreting what's happening around you. It's not an easy place to get to, right? So we spent a full 2 weeks getting to Turkey and back home without speaking English to really anyone outside of the very most touristy areas. And that's if that's a challenge for you and you're not prepared for that, this is not for you, because that was really tough. It was, thank goodness we had Google Translate. We were able to communicate pretty much anywhere we needed, and that was familiar with almost everyone we came across. That was a lifesaver. But I don't think I would have been able to navigate this one on my own. I needed to have the support of either one of you just to do the day-to-day activities.
Absolutely. This is a team trail. I mean, not just that, but carrying water, just sometimes somebody walking ahead and figure out where we're at, and then it's also, I really relied upon, the two of you to give me motivation when we're staring at walking up a cliff, or 300 meters up a cliff or something, and that was really just, that teamwork that really makes it worthwhile.
Before we get to the last question, I think we have to give a shout out to our man Othman, who had that beautiful bed and breakfast that we stayed at the second to last night.
Yeah.
Most remarkable place we've stayed at. It probably, of all the trails, the best hospitality we had anywhere. I would say hands down.
100%.
Yeah, when we write an article about that, we'll throw a little link to his place. But it just husband and wife. The guy used to be like the old mayor of the town we stayed in. Rebuilt this old Ottoman house from like 1900s, beautiful, like 3-story, big wooden beams, and just the most delicious food I've ever had in my life. At the end of the day, with this view, like looking out over the sea from it. When we were first brought there, it took us like 45 minutes by car to get there. We're like, wow, where are we going? Like we're going on these like side streets, and then it was so worth it. So big shout out to him in making the hospitality just wonderful. Final thing before we wrap this up, how has this trail changed what we're looking for in the future? What are we looking for in the future? Any reflections on how this trail has kind of shaped the evolution of the long ways as we kind of look towards our next hikes?
Well, I think that one of the ways it's kind of shaped me is that, we've got to be a little bit more cognizant of the weather, and although, we keep running into that, which is actually a great, how to adapt to crazy weather condition stories. But I personally, have a lot more trails I want to be on. I think that this one kind of marks, once again, a little bit further right on the technical scale, right? Okay. And so for me, it just makes me look at trails a little bit differently. What time of year is it? What's the temperature going to be like there? Instead of just, this is the window we have, let's go hike there, right? Type of mentality.
For me, this one it was a big personal challenge for me coming off an ankle injury in August, having a lot of anxiety about whether I was going to be able to, hit the trail, whether I was going to be able to finish this trail. It was a personal win for me being able to succeed on this trail with that anxiety and nervousness. But on the other side of the coin, I think it has opened my eyes. This culture was something I would, like I mentioned, would never probably have experienced on my own. Opened my eyes to a part of the world I, was nervous about going to, and I am so happy that my views have changed. My outlook on just hospitality in general has changed. It's been upped. My expectations for hospitality were exceeded, and I think that's changed me. That's opened my eyes. And then I'll just touch on the animals thing. Just watching a society take care of things that some societies look, just ignore. It's impressive. It's impressive to see how different parts of the world care and love for things, and despite whatever religion you follow or don't follow, the respect for that was totally inspiring, and one of the things I really look for in trails to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, I'm trying to juxtapose this with Slovenia, which was very much like a traditional, like, get up there, stay in mountain huts, be way up in the Alps. And that was really fun. I think for me, this one is showing me more and more that the reason I love these hikes, is for the views, but it's for the culture. It's for spending time in the towns. It's for getting to meet different kinds of people, hiking through ancient ruins. And I think that it's been changing. It's really solidified to me what kind of trail I like to do and why I do this. And I think we've all kind of started to realize that we're not the kind of people who are going to spend 12 days up in the mountains with a sleeping bag or even staying in mountain huts.
No way.
But we are the kind of people who like love this culture and love this. So one of the things I've thought about doing in the future, and our eternal trail organizers, Max Adventures, offer a few of these, is I've thought about doing maybe a pilgrimage in the future, actually, a pilgrimage walk and doing the culture of that. There's some in Spain and Portugal, but there's also some in like Japan and doing that. So I think that's what this did for me. I think it really solidified the love of the culture and that being such a big part of the hike and the walk, and maybe the number one part going forward.
Well, I'm going to say that the next walk should probably be a brewery winery walk, right? So, like, I'm okay with 15 miles, but 15 miles. Well, okay, we did almost have an epic failure with that.
I was just about to say, we realized that having a wee dram or two before hiking 10 miles isn't the best thing.
Okay, so wee drams in Scotland are water glasses.
Well, I think this is where we're going to end today, everyone. Thank you for listening once again. Once again, I'm Devin Windelspecht.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Eric.
And thank you for listening.
Hi, everyone. This is Devin again. I just want to chime in here to say that we are announcing a new project with the Long Ways. We will be on Substack, actually. So please keep an eye out on Instagram, our website, and other social media, where we'll be announcing what that is, what it's going to look like, and how it's going to make the Long Ways even better going forward. So stay tuned.